We gotta talk about this, because it's ugly. Offensive line. Offense. Play calling. All these things go together to make the perfect formula of what happened yesterday. Now, at the end of the day, we did not have T. Higgins yesterday. Jamar Chase was not 100%, but there's no excuses for how we performed yesterday. I think a lot of it, I know it's the age-old thing here, is on play calling. Because when you have the last 3 plays of our last drive, where we don't give the ball to Joe Mixon one effing time, sacked. Run play by Joe Burrow. Pass play incomplete. When you don't take one chance at running the ball, when there's less than 2 minutes on the clock, and really your best bet there is to just run the ball, run the clock, and try to get as close as humanly possible. If not, let Joe Mixon go get you a touchdown. And that wasn't the only time that happened either. You go back early in the game when we were in the red zone within the 15-yard line, and Joe throws an interception, and guess how many times that scenario there, we ran the ball. We ran it in situations where I feel like it just didn't work, and it wasn't going to work. And then we threw it in situations that I feel like the opposite should have happened, right? So, we don't have the data yet from that game. That comes out later today. But I want to look at today is this bad boy right here. So I compiled a chart of all the throws that has happened with Joe Burrow so far this season. Now, keep in mind, the first 4 weeks of the season, he had a calf strain. He couldn't really put much pressure into his throws, right? He couldn't really step into his throws. So there were some, outliers that would kind of go for the first 4 weeks of the season. But let's take a look at what this looks like. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here for each game to kind of take a better look to kind of show you guys. So what we're going to look at here is actually, let me zoom out for this one. First 2 games of the season, right? This was the Cleveland game, and this obviously was the Ravens game. So the 3 different categories here are outside left, between the numbers, which is between the hash marks, right? And then outside right. So this is where his throws are going in these games. So if you want to think in theory, like, is he going toward the outside? Is he going toward the inside? And we have made the argument as fans, I feel like, countless times. You need to throw the ball on slant routes across the middle. Slant across the middle. Slant across the middle. Throw it across the middle. I think we have almost, begged that to death at this point. Let's be honest. That needs to start happening. And the first 2 weeks of the season, we see week 1 against the Browns. We had 2 passes deep, incomplete to the right-hand side. 3 passes deep to the left-hand side, incomplete. And keep in mind that, again, he did have calf strain. He re-aggravated in the Ravens game over here on the right. 2 incomplete passes, and you can see 20 yards, 10 yards, 0 yards. So 20 plus yards down the field, he was 0 for 5. He targeted 3 on the left, 2 on the right, 0 for 5. Then passes 10 plus yards. He was, of course, 1 for 4. With only 1 10-yard gain in that week 1 performance. Irv Smith did have a catch of 10, 15 yards, but he ended up didn't get his feet in bounds, so it is what it is. Now, here is where we live, right? This is where we live, these 2 categories right here. You're going to see this a lot in this video. Passes to the left-hand side. This obviously is screen pass. I don't say screen pass as much, because screen pass is usually behind the line of scrimmage. This is usually out routes we do. We kind of do a pass to the running back, check down pass to running backs, that kind of stuff. We're 2 for 2 on the left-hand side week 1, 4 for 5 in the middle, and 3 for 7 on the right-hand side. Now, these are passes behind the line of scrimmage. The blue line is line of scrimmage. The yellow line is going to be the first down marker, right? We are 2 for 3 behind the line of scrimmage week 1, throwing in the middle of the field. This is screen passes. These are screen passes. 2 for 2 on the right-hand side. So check downs out of the backfield, that type of stuff right there. Week 2, we play the Ravens. Joe does not reactivate his calf strain until the end of this game. Just keep that in mind. First half was absolutely horrendous. Second half, we came alive. But still, 20 plus yards. We are 0 for 1 in that game, throwing it 20 plus yards, okay? 10 plus yards, so 10 to 20 yards, kind of that little ballpark range. We were actually very successful throwing across the middle, 3 for 4, which is 75 percentile. But you can see right here, the QBR rating, 77.1. Outside right, we were 1 for 3 with 13 yards. Outside left, 1 for 5, 13 yards. So in the end here, we're hitting around a 5 for 12 going past the line of scrimmage. Okay, throwing passes 10 plus yards versus the Ravens. In the numbers, but obviously less, which again, keep in mind, teams will give you that. Teams will give you, especially on third downs and stuff, this will be a lot of these chunk plays, is that they'll give you a 5-yard pass on 3rd and 10. They'll give you a 4-yard pass on 3rd and 10, right? So that's also another thing to take into consideration. Not all these passes are really that great passes. For example, 2 catches, right, for 9 yards. That's 4.5 yards a catch. I know obviously you might say, well, no, he had 1 yard on 1 catch and he had 8 yards on another. No, but I'm saying the average there is 4.5 yards a catch here. So you can see kind of the general gist here of how long these yards actually are, how long these passes are. They're not like every pass here is 9 yards. And it's like, well, we're throwing it 9 yards, so we're actually doing, no, we're throwing it like 1 to 2 yards on some plays. All right, so as you can see right here, surprisingly enough, this is the first time we're talking about touchdowns, right? Because our offense took until the second half of the Ravens game to score the first touchdown of the season. We scored our first touchdown with Charlie Jones, Chuck Sizzle, but our first offensive touchdown came, in the Ravens game. And both of our touchdowns actually in the Ravens game, both of them outside left and outside right. 3 for 4, 1 touchdown, 2 for 2, 9 yards, and 1 touchdown. Now, we started targeting the middle of the field in that Ravens game, and we really saw it in the second half, right? We started doing slant routes. We started doing, just drag routes, and it started working. It worked very, very well. And I think a lot of people, and myself included, we came out of that Ravens game and we said to ourselves, wow, this offense is now getting going. We lost the Ravens game, but what we saw was that we can actually move the ball because we started using the middle of the field. Behind the line of scrimmage, we were still throwing it very efficiently, actually, surprisingly enough. We were 10 for 10 behind the line of scrimmage. We didn't have any touchdowns, and we only had a total of 34 yards, but we were able to do it behind the line of scrimmage. So, going into our next game, which obviously was the Rams game, and we thought that would be a lot easier of a game. Our first win of the season, by the way. We said to ourselves, okay, we're going to keep this principle up of we are going to keep throwing the ball across the middle of the field. So what did we do? We said, let's keep the mentality up a little bit, which, okay, works out. In that Rams game, we were 1 for 2 throwing the ball, 1 for 3, throwing the ball deep here. 43 yards on 1 completion. Other than that, though, we could not get the ball deep. Keep in mind, Joe does reactivate his calf strain in that Ravens game in the last touchdown, which obviously does hinder him for this Rams game right here because, again, he's not 100%. He doesn't really get 100% until the Cardinals game. The Cardinals game was when he actually got back to Joe, and then the Seahawks game, it was really that Joe, and he's back. Alright, so in the Rams game, we were, of course, 3 for 7, 10 plus yards. And again, 1 interception here, a total of 37. By the way, our interception versus the Ravens here, that was actually, I know we threw an interception in the Ravens. Okay, it's not actually on this chart right here for some reason. Oh, no, right here. We thought, yeah, so it was across the middle. So we threw it across the middle, and that was 10 plus yards. We threw that interception. All right, so the Rams game, going back to it, though, let me get a little bit farther up. So we were 3 for 7, 3 for 9, 3 for 9 going 10 plus yards. And we also threw an interception. So our second interception, which it was throwing across the middle of the field, 10 plus yards. Underneath, we were actually pretty effective. 8 for 11, 7 for 11, and 2 for 4. So that wasn't really bad across the middle within, again, 10 yards. But again, teams will give you that because that's like a gimme. That's a gimme every single time. 2 for 2, 3 for 3, and 0 for 1 in the backfield. A lot of those were screen passes, and what you're going to see real fast is that we do a lot of screen passes. You already know that, but I'm saying you're going to see this with the chart too. All right, so this is what, week 2, week 3, and then this is week 4 now. Now, this was the Titans game. Oh, lordy. Oh, lordy. That game was ugly. Yeah. We threw one pass, 20-plus yards in that game. 10-plus yards, we threw a total of 1 for 2. So we threw, pretty much in that Titans game, we threw 3 passes, and we were 1 for 3 when we threw the ball plus 10 yards, pretty much. 10 yards or more. The rest of that was just, simple 0 to 10 yards. And again, a lot of these were simply just passes, check down passes, 5-yard passes, 2-yard passes. I mean, you're 8 for 10, right? Or 8 for 9, my bad, with 80 yards. So you're averaging around 10 yards play right there within 10. So again, like I said, that is efficient, but when these are all zeros, that's when the problem starts happening. 2 for 2, 14 yards on the right-hand side, 2 for 3 on the left-hand side. Keep in mind, we do put Chase all over the field, so it's not like we're selecting one side of the field and saying, oh yeah, that's where we throw the ball because Chase is always over there. No, he's always lined up in the slot. He'll line him up on the outsides, right or left. They kind of move him around. All right, so within, again, behind the line of scrimmage, we were actually surprisingly enough in that game, 7 for 8 in that game, behind the line of scrimmage. Now we have the age-old Cardinals game. The game where Joe felt like he was 100% back, and he is now Joe Burrow again. Going deep, we actually did go ahead and hit 2 for 3 in that going deep series. We threw 63 yards and a touchdown in that going deep. I say going deep, 20-plus yards. 10-plus yards. This is really when we opened up the offense, right? This is really when we got going in that category. We weren't perfect, let's be honest. We were 6 for 10, which is 60 percentile. 1 touchdown, 1 interception in that Cardinals game. Within 10 yards, we really started opening up the middle of the field, and this is, again, what us fans really wanted to see is slant routes, stuff like that, drag routes. Just go across the middle. Now, again, a lot of that is checkdowns. When you look at 12, catches, 91 yards, what is that a pop? That's around like 6.5, 6.6 yards a pop for each catch, averaging, obviously. 5 for 6, 33 yards on the left. And then, of course, underneath on the right here, we did not target one time on any type of play like that. Backfield, 7 for 7 in the middle. And then backfield, 5 for 5 on the right. That's week 5. Week 6, this was the Seahawks game. We went away from throwing it deep. 0 for 3 with 1 interception, which is the only time we took a deep pass, was actually right out of halftime it was, where we tried to go against, what's that guy's name? Trey Brown versus Jamar Chase. 10-plus yards here, we were a total of 2 for 4, and that, of course, was 31 yards. So you can see here the problem with that offense, that Seahawks game, was the first half we were pretty good, but the second half we absolutely got shut out. We couldn't do anything in the second half. We got 3 points off of Cam Taylor-Britt interception. It was a mess. And you can see they shut down our deep throws, and everything for us was underneath. And even then, we weren't really that efficient underneath either. So it was an absolute freaking mess in that game. Next game we have here is going to be the 49ers game, which obviously is out of our bye week. We had 3 passes deep, 20-plus yards. All 3 were completed. We did have... Okay, so it says 17, but it's a 20-plus. I'm going to guess they mean it was a touchdown. It was a touchdown grab on that play. So I think that's why they have it in 20-plus. 10-plus, though, we do have, of course, 4 for 5, which, again, not bad. The 49ers game, our offense actually went up and down the field multiple times. We looked like our old team again. We looked actually really freaking good. But look at right here. This is where we are bread and butter. And again, slant routes, across the middle, drag routes, stuff like that. 9-11 here, 3 for 3, 3 for 3. Behind the line of scrimmage here, we hit a total of 6 for 8, which was pretty efficient. Then we go into last week's game versus the Bills. Again, struggling going deep here. We were able to hit a total of 2 for 4. 2 for 5, sorry. This is because a lot of the reason why was because they shut down Jamar Chase. And when Chase is not, healthy or he's getting shut down, our numbers, you can see it's almost impossible for us to go deep. Now, keep in mind this Bills game, this was the T. Higgins game, and a lot of T. Higgins catches were actually, surprisingly enough, either right at the line, right at the yellow line, or a little bit past it. So we were 2 for 2 to him on the right-hand side. I will say to him because it was to him on those plays. 3 for 4 on the left-hand side with a touchdown. This touchdown, one of them was to Irv Smith, I believe. 4 for 4 under 10 yards, which obviously left-hand side. 8 for 8 in the middle. 4 for 7 in the right-hand side. 3 for 3 on the left behind the line of scrimmage. Check down passes, screen passes, that kind of stuff. 5 for 6 in the middle. And 0 for 2 on the right. Now, again, we don't have the numbers for the Texans game yet, but I will say, looking at what we did in that Texans game, I want to say we had not zero, sorry. We had a Tyler Boyd 66-yard play at the end of the game. I want to say we didn't have too many deep passes, though. I mean, I might be incorrect. I'm going to pull up the thing here just to kind of overview this here. Because, again, like I said, I don't have the numbers exactly just yet. But, let me, there we go. And actually, I think, instead of doing it like this, I think we can just go to team stats, I believe, and does it tell us exactly 20 plus yards? I think if it doesn't tell us here, what we should be able to see is this, which is the long stat. This is the longest they have caught the ball. So Jamar Chase had a 64-yard touchdown. That was 100% a, obviously, 20-plus yard throw. Tyler Boyd did have at least one 20-plus throw. Trent Irwin had the 20-plus yard touchdown, which, of course, was the 32-yard touchdown. Tanner Hudson, no, we did not throw it more than 20 yards there. And I'm going to have to move this to the right so then I felt get in trouble there. And then that was pretty much it. So I think we had 3 deep throws in that Texans game overall-wise. All that obviously coming, well, other than the Tanner Hudson. I'm not Tanner Hudson, other than the Trent Irwin. All that coming in the second half at the end of the game, which I guess you could call garbage time, but it is what it is. So, yeah, the takeaway from all this, really, is that, well, yes, this offense is weird. Like, sometimes we're struggling. Sometimes we look like we can't catch a cold. We can't do anything. And okay. Apologize for that, guys. Sometimes it seems like we can't catch cold. We can't do anything. When you really break down this offense, right, and obviously we did in this video, it's like, this is what's confusing, right, is that it's play calling. That is really, it's play calling execution, but that's going to be something that's going to be very tough for the coaches, the players, and everyone included to truly fix, because it's not like one isolated problem or one isolated thing, right? Because I've said this going into this video, I'll say again, the offensive line is definitely a problem, right? We're getting pressured way too much on Joe Burrow. But you look at these concepts here and we're looking like, okay, well, clearly we can't go deep. Why can't you go deep? Well, there's 2 reasons why you can't go deep. Well, 3 reasons, I'll say. Play calling, line, or receivers. We had the receivers. Now, you could say it's a failure execution, okay. But most likely it's the line. You don't have enough time to set up deep passes to go deep and throw the ball over the top, right? Number 2 could be, again, play calling. What if you have a crappy play call that doesn't get the guy open deep? That's also a problem. We clearly have the receivers, and I don't think it's an execution problem. I think it is a play calling / offensive line problem. And when you coincide these numbers, right? And I'm going to go ahead and kind of put up a chart here to kind of, reflect a little bit of this. So, week 1, right, we could not go deep, right? Could not go deep week 1. I want to go ahead and show you guys these numbers. Hang on. Let me pull this up. 1 second, guys. I'm just going to move this over. All right, so week 1, we could not throw the ball deep. And again, that Browns game was kind of a monsoon. It was first game of the season. I don't like to put too much emphasis on that game, but, you know, we have to take into consideration. So, okay, so we could not throw it deep on the week 1. Well, look at the offensive line numbers for week 1. Let me just do it like that. There we go. So, offensive line numbers for week 1 were horrendous. We had one Green, Alex Kappa. Orlando Brown was awful. Jonah Williams was awful. Teddy K was awful. And Cordell Volson was awful. So, that makes sense. We couldn't throw the ball deep. Obviously, yes, Joe did have the calf strain. But at the end of the day, you know, he didn't really re-aggravate it until that Ravens game. So, week 1 didn't work. Offensive line, crappy week 1. Okay? Let's go to week 2. Ravens game. Wow, offensive line played really decent. We actually in the second half played really good. Well, we only attempted one deep ball in that game, so that's a really bad analogy here. But we were able to complete a lot of passes across the middle here. We were able to also get the ball a little bit deeper, 10 plus yards. Again, it wasn't perfect, but that's because we only played half a game. The first half, we didn't play at all. I mean, I don't think the offense even showed up in the first half. Meaning, I don't even think they played on the field. I think I was out there in the first half. Week 3. Offensive line was trash. Absolutely garbage. Wow, we completed one pass, 20 plus yards in week 3. Could not get the ball down the field in week 3. We were 1 for 3. Correlations? I think so. All right. Week 4 versus the Titans. Our offensive line actually was not as trash horrendous. They did blitz us the whole entire time and put pressure on us. But at the same time, you look at this. Center, left guard, right guard. The interior offensive line was destroyed in that game. We could not throw the ball deep at all. Could not throw it deep at all. Makes sense when your offensive line is bad. All right, week 5, we absolutely amazing offensive line. Everyone did good except for Cordell Volson, which is not surprising. We were able to get 1 out of 2 deep passes here, so we got around 1 and 3 deep. But this is our bread and butter. 3 for 3 across the middle. Left-hand side, 10 plus yards. We were 30 yards and a touchdown across the middle. And 0 for 2 on the right-hand side. And we got a lot of great completions across the middle here, which actually averaged us out to almost 10 yards of play. Now we got week 6 versus the Seahawks. Okay. Now let's go ahead and go down the chart here. This is where we could not throw the ball deep. And surprisingly enough, I will say, you know, we did not really... Our line was actually pretty okay in that game. I mean, overall-wise, we had Teddy K and Cody Ford. Cody Ford comes in because Orlando Brown goes down with injury. But overall-wise, though, these 4 numbers right here, I mean, they actually were playing pretty good in that game. And we still couldn't get the ball down the field, right? So I'm gonna talk about this in a second. I just want to kind of go over this whole entire setup here before we kind of break down the point I'm making. I promise I am making the point here, guys. 49ers game. Let me go over to the right-hand side a little bit. There we go. So 49ers game now, right? We have Teddy, obviously, number 1. But it was a pretty interesting game. 3 guys here. 2 bad here, right? All right, so that was, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This was this game right here in the middle. We ended up being in that game. We were 3 for 3 going deep. We also did score a touchdown. Obviously, a touchdown. Nice. And then going into that, we also had, 4 for 5, 10 plus yards. But as you can see, we were able to get the ball down the field. Is this surprising? No, because our offensive line, left side offensive line struggled. But our right side absolutely held up their own and got the job done. Offensive line, a little bit more time to throw it. You're going to find guys deeper on that play. Week 9 versus the Bills. Overall, one of our worst offensive performances, really, of the year, pretty much. And what happened? We struggled. Now, we were able to actually complete 2 for 4 in that game, going 20 plus yards. And then, of course, 3 for 4, 2 for 2, 10 plus yards. Now, what is the point I'm making? What is this whole thing I'm trying to get all of us to wrap around? This is the problem with the offense. While, yes, you see some correlation between the line playing bad and the team not being able offensively able to move the ball down the field, stretch the field, get down the field. You got to look at the fact that it's not just the line then. Then it's also play calling. Now, there are also a lot of these. Again, keep in mind, a lot of these games, Bills game, right? We started off fast, 21 points. 49ers game, we started off fast, 14 points. Seahawks game, we started off fast, 14 points. All these games we're starting off fast, left, right, center, left, right, center. We keep starting off fast. And a lot of these numbers, right? This is why I always say this, right? I always say this when it comes to stats. People put up stats all the time. They never put stats in context. They never do. Because if you put stats in context, things don't prove your point as well, right? Because if I tell you, hey, listen, Joe Burrow is the best quarterback of all time, and I show you all the stats that make him look perfect, guess what you're going to say? Well, he looks perfect. But if I show you all the bad stats, you're going to say, ooh, maybe he's not perfect, right? And again, I'm not saying that to diss Joe in any way, but I'm saying that stats matter in context, right? So, in theory, you look at some of these games, you're like, well, we're getting the ball 20-plus yards, 20-plus yards. That's pretty good, man. That's pretty good. Yeah, but the problem is when you only do that in the first half, right? Because the second half, if I just showed you second half numbers for a lot of these games, I promise you right now, they don't look good. These second half numbers look absolutely horrendous. And what is the problem of that? That's a problem of, number one, you guessed it, coaching. Coaching and play calling. Number two, you could say, well, maybe offensive line play. But tell me this, why did the offensive line, other than the Seahawks game, because the second half of the Seahawks game, they just blitzed us the whole entire time. But why did the offensive line get drastically worse in the second half of that game, in these games? They probably don't, right? They probably don't get drastically worse. And when we look at these game tapes, we look at them every single week. We break down the whole entire game, every offensive play, to see where things are going wrong, where things are being a problem. And what we see in these game tapes is a lot of it is the play calling. It is. And while yes, it could also be a failure of execution, okay? It is. Tyler Boyd yesterday dropped a touchdown. He dropped a wide open pass too. Joe Burrow missed a wide open touchdown, Drew Sample. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter though, right? Because when you really look at the second half of these games, play calling is when things are getting bad and ugly. Because a lot of these numbers right here, while they look beautiful, while they look amazing, a lot of these numbers are in context it's the first half numbers. And it's not the second half. And that's our problem, right? And what you might say, what's the solution? That's the issue. There isn't any short-term A, B, C, D, E, F, G solution, right? Because if there's a line problem, you're looking at it and you say, that's our problem, the offensive line, go get somebody else. Said we go ahead and cut L. Collins. Anyway, if that's a problem, you say, okay, well, we need to fix this problem. Left guard's the problem. Right tackle's the problem. Center's the problem. That is an easy solution, right? We can sit there and say, this is the guy we're going to go target. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to figure out the problem. First thing you have to do as a team, and I've been saying this for weeks and weeks and weeks now, and I feel like it's going on deaf ears. You have to acknowledge there's a problem, right? That's first thing. Then what you have to do is you have to root out the problem, right? So now we already figured it out. It's either player execution, which is what they keep preaching. It's number two, the offensive line, or it's number three, the play calling. That's the three things that could be wrong right now that we have to figure out. Clearly, I do not think it's execution, right? Obviously, yes, we did have injuries and T. Higgins was out. But based on watching these games, going down, looking at every single game, and again, guys, if you do not watch my weekly series, make sure you watch it, because we look at every single game, okay? We look at every single play. We break it down. So, I don't think it's execution. I don't think it's the offensive line as much. It is a little bit, don't get me wrong, they've been playing pretty bad, but I really starting to think it's play calling more and more. And it's like the more we watch these games, and don't get me wrong, we have games where we look good, right? And I say good, but then we only look good in the first half. Bill Belichick, and I know it's funny to quote him now because he's kind of fallen off the cliff at this point, right? but I think it's a very important quote that he has said before. Players win games, coaches lose them. And listen, I love Brian Callahan. I love Brian Callahan. And I also love Zach Taylor. And I think they are excellent minds, excellent coaches, excellent play callers. But it seems like how we play a lot of these games is we play not to lose. And I don't feel like there are some games we play aggressive. Like that Bills game, we played aggressive as crap. We won the game, but we played aggressive. In other games, we play not to lose. And we're not consistent with it. We go back and forth. It's like we have a mentality, we have something that defines this team and who we are, and then we go away from it the second later. Like, we're like, oh yeah, this is us. This is how we play. And then next game, we're like, oh, we don't play like that no more. And then the next game, we play like that again. It's a weird mentality, and I think it shakes up the team way too much. And Lou Dini, for his credit, all these games, I mean, I've said this many times, you look at all the games that we won, the Seahawks game, Cardinals game, the Bills game. All those wins have came off our defense's back, right? Our defense has played perfect in those games. And a lot of that is Lou Dini, and a lot of that is this defense in general. Yesterday, our defense got shredded. Defense got destroyed. And that happens, right? That's football. You're not going to play perfect every game. You're going to have a game where your defense simply cannot get the job done and struggles greatly. The problem is, right, and this is something Joe said and it's something we've all said, is complementary football. What happened yesterday for our defense was unacceptable. But with how good they've been playing, how amazing they've been playing, it was expected eventually they would not have a great game or perfect game. And at the end of the day, we have to play complementary football. The other side has to pick it up. The problem is the other side has not been picking it up this year. And we see with these numbers right here, and we see all the points with the offensive line playing, all of that kind of stuff, that makes this, again, like I said before, a problem that does not have an easy solution. And I know the first mentality is, well, we should have drafted this guy. I don't think this is a player problem. And I'm not saying that as in this is a Zach Taylor should be fired or, Brian Callahan should. No, never. I would never want to see any of those guys let go. But what I think this needs to happen, first off, and I've been very critical of Brian Callahan for his statements recently, when we had offensive struggles, and he came out and said, listen, this is a player problem. This is a failure to execution. This is someone but Jamar Chase needs to get open and make plays. And I said on that is, I do agree, right? We need to see it stepping up from our players, and we have to a certain degree. Tanner Hudson played great in this game. But I think it's also a failure, and there has to be some accountability and some, looking forward toward the coaches. And I think that's another thing, right? That's another thing we have to take in consideration. We have to look toward, because listen, at the end of the day, you're never going to get better unless you take accountability and you realize what is wrong, right? You figure out the problem. And right now we have a problem on offense. And it's really the second half offense especially. Tell me down below your thoughts and opinions. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.